The closet door creaked open just enough for Amelia Johnson to see the small figure huddled in the corner, trembling like a leaf in winter wind. 6-year-old Lily Hawthorne pressed herself against the back wall, her tiny arms wrapped around her knees, tears streaming down her bruised cheek. When she saw Amelia, her whisper was so faint it barely registered above the sound of baby Thomas crying from his nursery next door. "Please don't hurt us," Lily begged, her voice breaking. "I'll be good. I promise I'll be good." Amelia's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She knelt down slowly, keeping her movements gentle and non-threatening. "Sweet baby, I would never hurt you," she said softly. "I'm here to take care of you and your brother." But even as she spoke, Amelia heard the sharp clicking of heels on marble floor. Veronica Hawthorne appeared in the doorway, her perfectly styled blonde hair catching the light, her cold blue eyes scanning the scene with calculated precision. At 35, Richard's second wife was everything his first wife hadn't been: cold where Margaret had been warm, cruel where she had been kind. "Lily, get out of that closet this instant," Veronica commanded, her voice like ice. "You're making a mess and the baby is crying because of your dramatics." Lily flinched and scrambled out, keeping her head down. Amelia noticed the fresh bruise on the child's arm, purple and finger-shaped. Her stomach churned, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Mrs. Hawthorne," Amelia began carefully, "perhaps Lily was just scared. Children often hide when they're overwhelmed." Veronica's smile was sharp as a razor. "Amelia, isn't it? You're new here, so let me explain how things work in the Hawthorne household. The children have been spoiled since their mother's death. They need structured discipline. My husband may be too soft-hearted to see it, but I know what these children need." Thomas's cries grew louder from the nursery. Amelia excused herself and hurried to check on the 18-month-old baby. What she found made her blood run cold. The toddler was standing in his crib, red-faced from crying, but it wasn't just tears that marked his face. There were red marks on his tiny arms, and when she lifted him, he clung to her desperately. "Shush, sweet boy," Amelia whispered, rocking him gently. She had worked with children for 8 years and she knew the signs. These weren't accidents or normal childhood bumps and bruises. These were the marks of someone who had lost control, someone who took out their frustrations on helpless children. Veronica appeared in the nursery doorway. "He's been fussy all morning. Some children just cry more than others." Amelia bit back her response. She needed this job desperately. Her mother was sick, medical bills were piling up, and work was hard to find. The Hawthornes paid well, better than any family she'd worked for before. But looking at these 2 innocent children, she knew she couldn't stay silent forever. "When does Mr. Hawthorne return from his business trip?" Amelia asked, still holding Thomas close. "Next week," Veronica replied, her tone warning Amelia not to get any ideas. "He trusts me completely to handle things while he's away. These children mean everything to him, which is why he hired someone like you. Someone who understands their place." The way she said, "someone like you," made Amelia's skin crawl, but she refused to react. She'd faced worse than Veronica Hawthorne in her life, but never while trying to protect children who couldn't protect themselves. That evening, after Veronica retired to her room, Amelia sat with Lily during dinner. The little girl barely touched her food, picking at the mac and cheese with no appetite. "Miss Amelia," Lily whispered, glancing toward the doorway, "do you really not want to hurt us?" "Never, baby girl. Never ever. Mommy used to say that too. Before she went to heaven." Lily's voice was so small. "Daddy says Veronica loves us, but what, honey?" Lily looked around nervously. "She says if I tell Daddy anything bad, she'll send me away. She says Daddy won't believe me anyway because I'm just a kid who makes up stories." Amelia felt rage building in her chest, but she kept her voice calm. "You can always talk to me, Lily. Always." As she tucked the children into bed that night, Amelia made a decision that would change all their lives. She couldn't stand by and watch these innocent babies suffer. Richard Hawthorne was one of the richest men in the country, a tech billionaire who could have any nanny in the world. But he'd trusted his children's care to a monster, and he didn't even know it. How many of you have ever faced a moment where doing the right thing could cost you everything? Where staying silent felt safer than speaking up for someone who couldn't protect themselves? I want to know what you would have done in Amelia's situation. Please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below, because this story is just beginning, and the choices ahead will test every ounce of courage Amelia has. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as Amelia sat in her small room, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow she would start documenting everything. She would find a way to protect Lily and Thomas, even if it meant risking the job that was keeping her mother alive. She had no idea that Veronica was already planning her next move, or that the bruises on the children were just the beginning of a pattern of abuse that ran deeper than anyone imagined. But one thing was certain. Amelia Johnson had never backed down from a fight when children were involved, and she wasn't about to start now. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the Hawthorne mansion as Amelia prepared breakfast for the children. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with plans and worries about what she'd witnessed the day before. When Lily shuffled into the kitchen, Amelia noticed she was walking differently, favoring her left side. "Good morning, sweetheart," Amelia said gently, crouching down to Lily's level. "How are you feeling today?" Lily glanced around nervously before whispering, "My side hurts." Amelia's heart clenched. "Can you show me where?" With trembling fingers, Lily lifted the edge of her pajama top. Amelia had to bite her lip to keep from gasping. Dark purple bruises covered the child's ribs, fresh and angry looking. "Lily, honey, what happened?" "I fell," Lily said quickly, the practiced lie rolling off her tongue. "Yesterday after you went to your room. I fell down the stairs." Amelia knew it was a lie, but she also knew pushing too hard would only frighten the child more. "Okay, baby. Let me get you some breakfast and then we'll put some ice on that to help with the pain." As she prepared Lily's cereal, Amelia discreetly took photos with her phone. She felt sick doing it, but she knew documentation would be crucial. These children needed proof of what was happening to them. Thomas was still sleeping when Veronica glided into the kitchen, looking perfect as always in her designer workout clothes. She poured herself coffee and surveyed the scene with cold calculation. "Lily, eat faster," she commanded. "You have tutoring in an hour." "Yes, ma'am," Lily whispered, forcing down spoonfuls of cereal despite her obvious discomfort. Veronica turned to Amelia. "I'll be at the spa most of the day. Handle the children's needs but don't coddle them. They need to learn independence." After Veronica left, Amelia helped Lily get dressed, carefully noting each bruise and mark. The child's tutor, Mrs. Henderson, was a kind elderly woman who had worked with the family since before Margaret's death. "Miss Amelia," Mrs. Henderson said quietly while Lily worked on her reading. "That child seems different lately. More withdrawn. And I noticed she's been having trouble concentrating." Amelia chose her words carefully. Children grieve in different ways. Losing their mother was traumatic. Mrs. Henderson nodded, but her eyes were worried. "It's just, she used to be such a bright, happy child." Before the new Mrs. Hawthorne arrived. When Thomas woke from his nap, Amelia found him standing in his crib, reaching for her with desperate arms. As she lifted him, she noticed more marks on his tiny body. Red welts on his legs that looked suspiciously like pinch marks. Her hands shook as she changed his diaper. "Sweet boy," she murmured, kissing his forehead. "I'm going to keep you safe. Both of you." That afternoon, while the children napped, Amelia called her friend Dr. Patricia Coleman, a pediatrician she'd known since college. "Patricia, I need your advice. I'm working for a family and I'm seeing signs that concern me." Dr. Coleman listened as Amelia described what she'd observed. "Amelia, what you're describing sounds like classic signs of physical abuse. Those bruise patterns, the behavioral changes in the older child, the way the baby clings to you desperately. You need to report this." "To who?" "The father is Richard Hawthorne. He's one of the most powerful men in the state. His wife will claim I'm lying, trying to cause trouble. And these children will suffer more if I'm wrong or if nobody believes me. Then get evidence. Document everything. Take photos if you safely can. Keep a detailed log with dates and times. And Amelia, be careful. If this woman is capable of hurting small children, she won't hesitate to hurt you if she feels threatened." That evening, after Veronica returned from her spa day, Amelia witnessed something that made her blood boil. Thomas had been cranky, as toddlers often are, crying during dinner despite Amelia's efforts to soothe him. Veronica's patience, never substantial to begin with, snapped completely. "Make him stop crying," she hissed at Amelia. "He's just tired, Mrs. Hawthorne. Sometimes babies. I don't want to hear excuses." Veronica stood abruptly and walked around the table to where Thomas sat in his high chair. Before Amelia could react, Veronica pinched the baby's arm hard, causing him to scream louder. "Stop crying right now," Veronica said through gritted teeth. Amelia jumped up. "Mrs. Hawthorne, please. Let me take him upstairs." "Sit down," Veronica commanded. "He needs to learn that crying doesn't get him attention." Lily cowered in her chair, tears streaming down her face as she watched her baby brother suffer. Amelia's hands clenched into fists, every instinct screaming at her to protect these children, but she knew that if she confronted Veronica directly, she'd be fired on the spot. Instead, she stood slowly. "Please, Mrs. Hawthorne. I'm trained in child development. Let me handle this." Veronica's eyes flashed dangerously, but she stepped back. "Fine. But if he doesn't stop crying in 5 minutes, I'm calling an agency for a new nanny. One who can actually do her job." Amelia scooped Thomas into her arms, feeling his little body shake with sobs. She carried him upstairs, followed by Lily, who hadn't said a word during the entire horrific scene. In the nursery, Amelia examined the fresh marks on Thomas's arm while Lily sat in the corner, hugging her knees. "Miss Amelia," Lily whispered, "is it our fault? Are we bad kids?" Amelia knelt beside her, pulling the little girl into a gentle hug. "No, baby. You're not bad kids. You are perfect, beautiful, wonderful children who deserve love and kindness always." "Then why does she hurt us?" The question broke Amelia's heart. How do you explain cruelty to a 6-year-old who should never have to understand such darkness? "Some grown-ups are broken inside," Amelia said softly. "They make very bad choices. But it's never ever your fault." That night, after both children were asleep, Amelia sat in her room and started a detailed log. She wrote down everything she'd witnessed, every bruise she'd documented, every frightened whisper from Lily. She knew she was walking a dangerous line, but these children had no one else to protect them. She thought about Richard Hawthorne, traveling the world making billion-dollar deals while his children suffered at home. He seemed to genuinely love Lily and Thomas, but he was completely blind to what was happening under his own roof. Veronica was a master manipulator, presenting a perfect facade whenever he was around. As Amelia prepared for another sleepless night, she made a promise to herself and to the 2 innocent children sleeping down the hall. She would find a way to expose Veronica's cruelty, no matter what it cost her personally. Lily and Thomas deserved a chance at happiness, safety, and love. She just prayed she could gather enough evidence before Veronica's abuse escalated to something even more dangerous. The private jet touched down at the airfield with barely a whisper, its sleek form cutting through the morning mist. Richard Hawthorne stepped out, his tall frame silhouetted against the dawn sky. At 42, he commanded respect in every room he entered, his success in the tech industry legendary. But today, all he wanted was to hold his children and forget about mergers and acquisitions for a few precious hours. James Rodriguez, his head of security, met him at the car. "Welcome home, Mr. Hawthorne. I trust the London meetings went well?" "Better than expected," Richard replied, settling into the luxury sedan. "How are Lily and Thomas?" "I know they've been adjusting to having Veronica as their stepmother and the new nanny." "The children seem quiet, sir. But Mrs. Hawthorne assures me they're doing well." Richard nodded, though something in James's tone gave him pause. "And the nanny? Amelia, wasn't it?" "Yes, sir. Amelia Johnson. She seems very dedicated to the children's welfare." When Richard walked through the front door of his mansion, Veronica rushed to greet him, her arms wrapping around him in a perfect display of wifely affection. She looked stunning as always, her blonde hair styled to perfection, her smile bright and welcoming. "Darling, you're home early," she said, kissing his cheek. "I've missed you so much." "Where are the children?" Richard asked, looking around the empty foyer. "Upstairs with their nanny. I thought you might want to freshen up first." Veronica's hand rested on his arm possessively. "They've been a bit difficult lately. Lily's been having tantrums and Thomas has been so clingy. I think they're testing boundaries with me." Richard frowned. "That doesn't sound like Lily. She's usually such a well-behaved child." "Children often act out when their routines change," Veronica said smoothly. "Having a new nanny and adjusting to our marriage, it's been challenging. But I'm handling it. I've had to be firm with them, help them understand that I'm not going anywhere." Before Richard could respond, he heard small footsteps on the stairs. Lily appeared, moving slowly and carefully with baby Thomas in Amelia's arms behind her. The moment Lily saw her father, her face lit up with pure joy. "Daddy," she cried, but instead of running to him as she usually did, she glanced nervously at Veronica first. Richard's heart ached at the hesitation. He knelt down, opening his arms. "Come here, princess." Lily approached cautiously, and when Richard hugged her, he noticed how she winced slightly. He also noticed she seemed thinner than when he'd left. "Are you feeling okay, sweetheart?" "I'm fine, Daddy," Lily said quickly, but she didn't meet his eyes. Amelia descended the stairs with Thomas, and Richard was struck by the baby's reaction to seeing him. Instead of reaching for his father as he normally would, Thomas clung desperately to Amelia, burying his face in her neck. "He's been fussy," Veronica explained quickly. "The nanny spoils him. I've been trying to teach him independence." Richard took Thomas from Amelia, noting how the child seemed reluctant to let go of his nanny. "Hello, big boy. Daddy missed you." Thomas whimpered and reached back toward Amelia, which stung Richard more than he cared to admit. "Mr. Hawthorne," Amelia said carefully, "the children have missed you very much. They've been asking about you every day." Richard studied his new nanny for the first time since returning. She was beautiful, with warm brown skin and intelligent eyes that seemed to hold a depth of concern he couldn't quite place. There was something in her manner, a protectiveness toward his children that he appreciated. "Thank you for taking such good care of them, Amelia." "It's my pleasure, sir. They're wonderful children." Veronica stepped closer to Richard. "Darling, why don't you get settled? I'll have Cook prepare your favorite lunch and we can catch up properly." As the day progressed, Richard began to notice subtle changes in his household. Lily, who used to chatter endlessly about her day, had become quiet and subdued. She answered his questions with simple yes or no responses, constantly glancing at Veronica as if seeking permission to speak. During lunch, Thomas barely ate, pushing food around his high chair and whimpering. When Richard tried to feed him, the baby turned away, but when Amelia approached, he immediately opened his mouth for her. "He's been difficult about eating lately," Veronica said with a frustrated sigh. "I've been working with him on manners, but he's stubborn like his father." Richard laughed, but it felt forced. Something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on what. That evening, as he tucked Lily into bed, he tried to reconnect with his daughter. "Tell me about your week, princess. What did you learn with Mrs. Henderson?" Lily fidgeted with her blanket. "We read about butterflies." "That sounds interesting. Did you know some butterflies can fly thousands of miles?" She nodded but didn't elaborate. The silence stretched between them, and Richard felt like he was trying to reach across an enormous chasm. "Lily, are you happy here? With Veronica and the new nanny?" Lily's eyes widened with something that looked like fear. "Yes, Daddy. Veronica takes good care of us." The words sounded rehearsed, and Richard's businessman instincts, finely tuned to detect deception in boardrooms, began to stir. Later, as he kissed Thomas goodnight, he noticed the baby seemed more relaxed with Amelia present. When she started to leave the nursery, Thomas began to cry, reaching for her desperately. "It's okay, sweet boy," Amelia murmured, returning to soothe him. "I'm right next door if you need me." "He's become very attached to you," Richard observed. "Children need consistency and comfort," Amelia replied carefully. "Especially when they've experienced loss." There was something in her tone, a subtle emphasis that made Richard look at her more closely. But before he could analyze it further, Veronica appeared in the doorway. "Richard, darling, you must be exhausted. Come to bed." That night, as Veronica slept beside him, Richard stared at the ceiling, unable to shake the feeling that something important was happening in his house, something he couldn't see. His children seemed like shadows of themselves, and while Veronica explained it as normal adjustment, his instincts told him otherwise. He thought about Amelia's careful words, the way she seemed to be trying to communicate something without actually saying it. He noticed how both children gravitated toward her, seeking comfort and protection in her presence. Tomorrow he decided he would pay closer attention. He would watch his family dynamics more carefully, observe the interactions between his wife and children when they thought he wasn't looking. Richard Hawthorne hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by ignoring his instincts, and right now, every instinct he possessed was telling him that his children needed him to see what he'd been missing. He just hoped he wasn't already too late. Amelia's hands trembled as she held her phone, the camera focused on the fresh bruise blooming across Thomas's shoulder blade. The 18-month-old had been crying during his bath, and when she gently examined him, she'd found the purple mark that hadn't been there that morning. "Sweet baby," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." It had been 3 days since Richard returned home, and Veronica had been on her best behavior. But the moment he left for the office each morning, the mask slipped away, revealing the cruel woman underneath. Amelia quickly took several photos from different angles, then gently dressed Thomas, her mind racing with plans. She'd been documenting everything for 2 weeks now, building a case that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. But gathering evidence while keeping the children safe was like walking a tightrope over an abyss. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Patricia Coleman. "Can you bring the children to my office today? I have an opening at 3 p.m. Amelia's heart raced. This was the chance she'd been waiting for, but it was also incredibly risky. If Veronica discovered what she was doing? "Miss Amelia?" Lily's small voice interrupted her thoughts. The 6-year-old stood in the nursery doorway, her arms wrapped around herself. "Is Tommy okay? I heard him crying." "He's fine now, sweetheart," Amelia said, lifting Thomas and settling him on her hip. How are you feeling today? Lily shrugged, but Amelia noticed how the child moved carefully, protecting her left side. Yesterday, Veronica had grabbed Lily's arm hard enough to leave finger-shaped marks when the little girl had accidentally spilled juice on the white sofa. Lily, would you like to go on a special trip today? Maybe get ice cream after we visit a nice doctor? Fear flashed across Lily's face. Are we in trouble? Did I do something wrong? Amelia's heart shattered. No, baby girl. You've done nothing wrong. This doctor is my friend and she just wants to make sure you and Tommy are healthy and strong. Will Veronica come with us? No, it'll just be us three. For the first time in days, Lily smiled. Okay, I'd like that. Amelia waited until she heard Veronica's car leave for her weekly massage appointment before gathering the children. She'd already called Mrs. Henderson and arranged for the tutor to tell Richard that the children had gone to the pediatrician for routine checkups if he asked. Dr. Patricia Coleman's office was warm and welcoming, with colorful murals on the walls and toys scattered around the waiting room. Patricia emerged from her office, her kind face lighting up when she saw the children. You must be Lily and Thomas, she said gently. I'm Dr. Coleman and I'm so happy to meet you. Lily hid behind Amelia's legs, but Thomas reached for the doctor with the easy trust that children have for genuinely kind people. Let's go to my examination room, Dr. Coleman said. I have some really cool stickers I'd like to show you, Lily. The examination was thorough but gentle. Dr. Coleman examined both children carefully, her professional mask slipping only slightly when she saw the extent of their injuries. She photographed each bruise, measured and documented everything with clinical precision. Lily, can you tell me how you got this bruise on your arm? She asked softly. Lily glanced at Amelia nervously. I fell. It's okay to tell the truth, sweetheart, Amelia encouraged. Dr. Coleman is here to help. Veronica gets mad sometimes, Lily whispered. When I spill things or make noise. She says I have to learn to be more careful. Dr. Coleman nodded, making notes. And Thomas? Have you seen anyone hurt Thomas? Lily's eyes filled with tears. She pinches him when he cries. She says babies who cry too much get sent away to other families. Amelia had to bite her lip to keep from breaking down. The calculated cruelty of using a child's worst fear against them was breathtaking in its evil. When the examination was complete, Dr. Coleman pulled Amelia aside while the children played with toys in the waiting room. Amelia, this is definitely abuse. These injuries are consistent with intentional harm, and the pattern suggests ongoing mistreatment. You need to report this immediately. To who? Child Protective Services won't investigate the wife of Richard Hawthorne without ironclad evidence. And if I'm wrong, if somehow there's an explanation. You're not wrong, Dr. Coleman said firmly. I've been a pediatrician for 15 years. I know abuse when I see it. These children are in danger. What if I try talking to Mr. Hawthorne directly? He loves his children. If he knew what was happening? That's risky, Amelia. If this woman is capable of systematically abusing small children, she's dangerous. If she feels cornered, she might hurt them worse, Amelia finished. I know. But these children trust me. They don't have anyone else. Dr. Coleman handed her a thick folder. Here are copies of all the medical documentation, the photographs, and my professional assessment. Whatever you decide to do, you'll have the evidence to back it up. On the drive home, Lily was unusually chatty, the fear temporarily lifted from her small shoulders. Dr. Coleman was nice, she said. She didn't hurt us at all. Not all grown-ups hurt children, baby girl, Amelia replied, catching Lily's eyes in the rearview mirror. Most grown-ups want to protect children and keep them safe. Like you do. Yes, like I do. That evening, Amelia sat in her room reviewing the evidence she'd collected. Photographs of bruises in various stages of healing, audio recordings of Veronica's cruel words, detailed logs of every incident she'd witnessed. Dr. Coleman's medical report painted a clear picture of systematic abuse. Her phone rang and she saw Richard's name on the screen. Hello, Mr. Hawthorne. Amelia, I hope you don't mind me calling so late. I wanted to thank you for taking the children for their checkups today. Veronica mentioned you'd arranged it. Amelia's blood ran cold. She mentioned it? Yes, she was pleased that you were being proactive about their health. She said Dr. Coleman gave them a clean bill of health. So Veronica knew where they'd been. Amelia's mind raced, trying to figure out how much danger they were all in now. Mr. Hawthorne, could I speak with you privately sometime? About the children? There was a pause. Is something wrong? I have some concerns I'd like to discuss with you. Of course. How about tomorrow evening? I'll be home early from the office. After they hung up, Amelia sat staring at the folder of evidence. Tomorrow night, she would tell Richard Hawthorne that his beloved wife was a monster. She would show him photographs of his children's bruises, play recordings of their frightened whispers, present medical documentation of systematic abuse. And then she would pray that he believed her, because if he didn't, Lily and Thomas would pay the ultimate price for her courage. The question that kept her awake that night wasn't whether she had enough evidence. It was whether she could live with herself if she stayed silent and something worse happened to these innocent children. The answer, as it had been from the beginning, was no. She couldn't live with that silence. Tomorrow she would risk everything to save two children who deserved so much better than the life they were living. The manila folder felt heavier than it should have as Amelia clutched it to her chest, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd spent the entire day rehearsing what she would say to Richard Hawthorne, how she would present the devastating evidence of his wife's cruelty without sounding like a disgruntled employee making false accusations. Through the nursery window, she could see Richard's car pulling into the circular driveway. He was home early as promised, and Veronica was at her book club meeting, which gave them perhaps 2 hours to talk privately. Miss Amelia? Lily's small voice made her turn around. The 6-year-old stood in the doorway, her favorite stuffed bunny clutched in her arms. Is Daddy really home? Yes, sweetheart. Would you like to go see him? Lily's face lit up, but then the familiar fear crept back in. Will Veronica be mad if I run to him? Veronica isn't here right now, baby girl. You can hug your daddy as much as you want. Lily practically flew down the stairs and Amelia followed more slowly, the folder hidden behind her back. She found father and daughter in the living room, Richard lifting Lily high in the air as she giggled with pure joy. The sound was so beautiful and so rare lately that it brought tears to Amelia's eyes. There's my princess, Richard said, settling Lily on his lap. How was your day? Good. Miss Amelia took us to get ice cream after we saw Dr. Coleman. Richard looked up at Amelia with a questioning smile. Dr. Coleman said you were both perfect patients. They were wonderful, Amelia replied carefully. Mr. Hawthorne, when you have a moment, I'd still like to speak with you privately. Of course. Lily, why don't you go play with Thomas for a few minutes? I need to talk to Miss Amelia about grown-up things. Lily scampered off, and Richard gestured for Amelia to sit across from him in the elegant sitting area. His businessman's instincts were clearly engaged now, his expression serious and attentive. What's on your mind, Amelia? She took a deep breath, knowing that once she started down this path, there would be no turning back. Mr. Hawthorne, what I'm about to tell you is going to be very difficult to hear. It's about your children's safety. Richard's posture straightened immediately. Their safety? What do you mean? I've been documenting incidents that concern me deeply. She opened the folder with trembling hands, pulling out the first set of photographs. These are pictures I've taken of injuries on both Lily and Thomas over the past 3 weeks. Richard's face went pale as he stared at the images. Photos of bruises, finger-shaped marks, red welts on tender skin. His hands shook as he flipped through them. My God, he whispered. How? When did these happen? All while you've been at work or traveling. Mr. Hawthorne, your wife has been physically abusing your children. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Richard's face cycled through disbelief, horror, and rage before settling into a mask of barely controlled fury. That's impossible, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Veronica loves the children. She married me knowing they came as a package. She's been nothing but patient with their adjustment. I have audio recordings, Amelia said gently, pulling out her phone. And medical documentation from Dr. Coleman confirming that these injuries are consistent with intentional abuse. She played the first recording, Veronica's voice, cold and threatening. Stop crying right now or I'll give you something to really cry about. Your father isn't here to protect you now. Richard's face crumbled. When was this recorded? 2 weeks ago when Thomas was teething and fussy during dinner. She pinched him until he screamed. The next recording was even worse. If you tell your father anything, I'll send you away to a boarding school where they don't allow crybabies. He won't believe you anyway. You're just a spoiled little girl who makes up stories for attention. She said that to Lily? Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Multiple times. She's been systematically terrorizing them, Mr. Hawthorne. They're afraid to speak, afraid to play, afraid to be children. Richard stood and paced to the window, his hands clenched into fists. I don't understand. Why would she do this? What possible reason? Some people are broken inside, Amelia said, echoing the words she'd used to comfort Lily. They take their anger and frustration out on those who can't fight back. But she seemed to care about them. She was concerned about their behavior, their adjustment. She was manipulating you, sir. Making you believe the children's withdrawal and fear were normal grief responses rather than reactions to abuse. Richard turned back to her, his eyes blazing. Show me everything. All of it. For the next hour, Amelia walked him through every piece of evidence she'd collected. Dr. Coleman's medical report stating that the injuries were highly consistent with intentional infliction by an adult. Photographs showing the progression of bruises, some fading while new ones appeared. Audio recordings of Veronica's cruel words and the children's frightened responses. This recording, Richard said, his voice hollow, when was it made? Yesterday afternoon. Thomas had knocked over a glass of water while trying to reach a toy. They listened to Veronica's voice, clumsy little beast. No wonder your mother died, probably couldn't stand having such a worthless child. Richard's composure finally shattered. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She said that about Margaret? About my wife's death. I'm so sorry, Mr. Hawthorne. I know this is devastating. My children, he whispered. My babies. How long has this been going on? I believe it started shortly after your marriage but escalated when I was hired. She resents their attachment to me. Richard looked up, his eyes red but determined. What do we do? How do I protect them? We need to remove them from danger immediately. And we need to ensure Veronica can never hurt them again. I'll call the police right now. Wait, Amelia said carefully. We need to be strategic. Veronica is smart and manipulative. If she gets any warning, she might try to turn this around on us, claim I'm lying or that you're being deceived. Then what do you suggest? We need irrefutable proof. Something she can't explain away or deny. As if summoned by their conversation, they heard the sound of a car in the driveway. Through the window, they could see Veronica's silver BMW pulling up to the front door. She's early, Richard said grimly. Mr. Hawthorne, don't confront her yet. Not until we have a solid plan. If she suspects we know. She might hurt them worse, he finished, understanding immediately. They quickly gathered the evidence, tucking it away just as Veronica's heels clicked on the marble foyer floor. Richard? I'm home early. The book club was cancelled. Her voice was honey-sweet, the perfect devoted wife. In here, darling, Richard called back, his voice remarkably steady given what he'd just learned. Veronica appeared in the doorway, looking elegant in her designer dress, her smile radiant. To anyone who didn't know the truth, she looked like the picture of maternal devotion. And how are my favorite children tonight? She asked, though her eyes held a coldness that Amelia now recognized as barely concealed malice. How many of you have children of your own? Can you imagine the horror of discovering that the person you trusted to love and protect them was actually their worst nightmare? Richard's world had just shattered, but he had to pretend everything was normal while planning how to save his babies. Please subscribe and let me know in the comments what you think Richard should do next. The confrontation is coming and it's going to change everything. They're upstairs, Richard said, his acting skills serving him well. Lily was asking about you. Veronica's smile widened, and Amelia felt sick knowing it was completely false. I'll go say goodnight to them. Amelia, please prepare their baths. As Veronica left the room, Richard caught Amelia's arm. Tomorrow, he whispered urgently. We end this tomorrow. But neither of them realized that Veronica had heard more of their conversation than they knew, or that she was already planning her own confrontation that would put everyone in mortal danger. The morning dawned gray and threatening, storm clouds gathering on the horizon like an omen of the chaos about to unfold in the Hawthorne household. Amelia had barely slept, her mind racing with plans and contingencies for exposing Veronica's abuse. But as she made her way to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, she had no idea that her careful investigation had already been discovered. Veronica stood at the kitchen island, perfectly dressed as always, but there was something different about her posture today. Something predatory and dangerous that made the hair on the back of Amelia's neck stand up. Good morning, Amelia, Veronica said, her voice sickeningly sweet. I trust you slept well? Good morning, Mrs. Hawthorne. Yes, thank you. Wonderful. I have some concerns we need to discuss. About your performance. Amelia's blood ran cold, but she kept her expression neutral. Of course. What concerns? Well, for starters, I've noticed you've been taking the children places without my explicit permission. Yesterday's trip to Dr. Coleman's office, for instance. Mr. Hawthorne approved routine medical checkups for the children. Did he? Veronica's smile was razor sharp. How interesting, because when I called Dr. Coleman's office this morning to get copies of their medical records, I was told some very disturbing things. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced herself to remain calm. Such as accusations of abuse, photos of supposed injuries, wild claims about my treatment of Richard's children. Veronica stepped closer, her blue eyes glittering with malice. Now, I know you wouldn't be spreading lies about me, would you, Amelia? I would never lie about the children's welfare. No, I suppose you wouldn't. Which makes this situation very unfortunate. Veronica pulled out her phone, scrolling to a photo that made Amelia's stomach drop. It was a picture of expensive jewelry, clearly taken in Amelia's bedroom. You see, when I went to your room this morning to discuss your behavior, I found these items hidden in your dresser drawer. I've never seen those before in my life. Of course you haven't. But try explaining that to the police when I report you for theft. A disgruntled nanny, caught stealing from her employers, making wild accusations to cover her own crimes. Veronica's laugh was cold and calculating. Who do you think they'll believe? The wife of Richard Hawthorne, or a woman with a criminal record? I don't have a criminal record. You will after today. At that moment, Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her small face pale and frightened. She'd obviously heard voices and come to investigate. Good morning, sweetheart, Veronica said, her tone shifting to false warmth. Miss Amelia and I were just discussing some grown-up business. Lily looked between them, her 6-year-old instincts picking up on the tension in the room. Miss Amelia, are you okay? I'm fine, baby girl, Amelia said, though her voice was strained. Actually, Lily, Miss Amelia won't be staying with us much longer, Veronica said with fake sadness. Sometimes adults make bad choices and there are consequences. Lily's eyes filled with tears. What do you mean? Miss Amelia isn't leaving, is she? Run along and get dressed, sweetheart. The grown-ups need to finish talking. But Lily didn't move. Instead, she ran to Amelia, wrapping her small arms around the nanny's legs. Please don't leave us, she whispered. Please. Veronica's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold fury underneath. Lily, go to your room. Now. The sharp tone made Lily flinch, but she didn't release her hold on Amelia. I want to stay with Miss Amelia. What you want is irrelevant, Veronica snapped. You'll do as you're told or there will be consequences. The same consequences Thomas faced yesterday when he wouldn't stop crying. The threat was clear and Lily's face went white with terror. She looked up at Amelia with desperate eyes. It's okay, sweetheart, Amelia said gently, though her heart was breaking. Go get dressed. Everything will be all right. Lily reluctantly released her hold and ran from the kitchen, her sobs echoing down the hallway. The sound tore through Amelia like a physical blow. You're a monster, Amelia said quietly. I'm practical, Veronica replied. Richard married me for companionship and social standing. I didn't sign up to be a mother to his dead wife's brats. But I'll tolerate them as long as they don't interfere with my life. You, however, have become a problem. Mr. Hawthorne will never believe I stole from you. Won't he? A woman desperate to pay her mother's medical bills? A woman who's been acting strangely, taking his children places without permission, filling their heads with stories. Veronica's smile was triumphant. I've been very careful to plant seeds of doubt about your behavior, Amelia. Richard is already questioning your judgment. Before Amelia could respond, they heard the front door open and Richard's voice calling out. I'm home early. Where is everyone? Veronica's expression shifted instantly to one of distressed concern. In the kitchen, darling. We have a problem. Richard appeared in the doorway, his face immediately registering the tension in the room. After their conversation the night before, he was hyper-aware of any situation involving Veronica and the children. What's wrong? He asked. Oh, Richard, Veronica said, tears suddenly appearing in her eyes. I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but I found stolen jewelry in Amelia's room. She's been taking things, and when I confronted her about it, she became aggressive and started making wild accusations about me hurting the children. Richard's eyes flicked to Amelia, and she saw a moment of doubt there that made her stomach clench. Veronica was a master manipulator, and she'd had months to perfect her performance. That's not true, Amelia said firmly. Mrs. Hawthorne, you know that's not true. I have photos of the jewelry in your dresser drawer, Veronica said, showing Richard her phone. I'm so sorry, darling. I know you trusted her with our babies. Richard, Amelia began, but he held up a hand to stop her. Let me see the jewelry, he said quietly. Veronica led them upstairs to Amelia's room, where she opened the dresser drawer with theatrical flair. Inside, nestled among Amelia's modest belongings, were several expensive pieces including a diamond necklace and emerald earrings that Amelia had seen Veronica wear. "I've never seen these before," Amelia said desperately. She put them there. "Why would I plant my own jewelry in your room?" Veronica asked with wounded innocence. "To frame me. To get rid of me because I know what you've been doing to the children." Richard stood silent, his jaw clenched, his eyes unreadable. Amelia could see him weighing the evidence, the accusations, trying to determine who was telling the truth. "Richard," Veronica said softly, "I know this is hard to believe." She seemed so caring with Lily and Thomas. "But sometimes people aren't who they appear to be." The irony of those words, coming from Veronica, was almost too much to bear. "I want her gone," Veronica continued. "I don't feel safe with her in the house with our children. What if she becomes violent when cornered?" "I've never been violent in my life," Amelia protested. "That's what you say now," Veronica replied. "But theft is just the beginning. Who knows what someone capable of stealing from children might do next?" Richard finally spoke, his voice carefully controlled. "Amelia, I think you should pack your things." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Mr. Hawthorne, please. The children need protection." From whom? The woman who loves them or the woman caught with stolen goods? Amelia realized with growing horror that Veronica's plan was working. Without concrete proof, without the evidence she'd hidden away, it was her word against that of Richard's wife. And Veronica had played this perfectly, making herself the victim and Amelia the villain. "Please," Amelia whispered. "Don't leave them alone with her." "I think you've done enough damage," Richard said, his voice cold. "I want you out of this house within the hour." As Amelia packed her few belongings with shaking hands, she could hear Thomas crying desperately from his nursery and Lily sobbing in her room. The children knew she was leaving, knew they were being abandoned to their abuser, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. But as she carried her suitcase downstairs, Amelia made a silent promise. She wouldn't abandon Lily and Thomas. She would find another way to expose Veronica's cruelty and save the children she'd come to love as her own. She just prayed she could do it before Veronica's retaliation against the children became deadly. The hotel room was small and dingy, but it was all Amelia could afford after losing her job at the Hawthorne mansion. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed, staring at her phone, torn between desperation and determination. 3 days had passed since Veronica's successful manipulation had gotten her fired, and the silence from the house was driving her crazy with worry. She tried calling Richard twice, but Veronica had answered both times, sweetly informing her that Mr. Hawthorne had no desire to speak with a thief and that any further contact would result in a restraining order. "Think, Amelia," she whispered to herself. "There has to be something." Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Patricia Coleman. "Any update on the situation? I'm very concerned about those children." That was it. Dr. Coleman had copies of all the medical evidence. She could go directly to Child Protective Services, but Amelia knew that without her eyewitness testimony, it would be her word against the Hawthornes. A messy investigation that might drag on for months while Lily and Thomas suffered. Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. "Miss Amelia? It's James Rodriguez, Mr. Hawthorne's head of security. Can you meet me? I have something important to show you." Amelia's heart raced. James had always been kind to the children, and she'd sensed he was uncomfortable with some of what he'd observed at the house. Maybe he'd seen something that could help. They arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown, and when Amelia arrived she found James already waiting, a tablet computer in front of him and worry lines creasing his face. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat down. "I wasn't sure you'd trust me. The children are in danger, James. If you have information that can help them." "I do." He turned the tablet toward her and her breath caught. On the screen was security footage from inside the house, time-stamped from the day before. It showed Veronica dragging Lily down the hallway by her arm, the little girl stumbling to keep up. "The house has security cameras everywhere," James explained. "Mr. Hawthorne had them installed after some threats he received last year. They're motion activated and record everything." "Does he know about this footage?" "That's the problem. Veronica convinced him to give her access to the security system. She's been deleting files, but I've been backing everything up to a separate server without her knowledge." James swiped to the next video and Amelia gasped. It showed Veronica in Thomas's nursery, roughly grabbing the crying baby and shaking him while hissing words they couldn't hear. "My God," Amelia whispered. "There's more." James showed her video after video. Veronica slapping Lily across the face, pinching Thomas until he screamed, forcing the children to eat food they dropped on the floor. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Why are you showing me this? Why not take it directly to Mr. Hawthorne? James looked uncomfortable. Because Veronica has convinced him that I'm biased in your favor. She told him I was inappropriately close to you, that I might fabricate evidence to help you. If I present this alone, she'll claim I doctored the footage. But if we present it together? Exactly. Your testimony combined with this video evidence would be impossible to dismiss. Amelia's phone rang and she saw Richard's name on the screen. Her heart leaped with hope. Hello. Amelia. Richard's voice was strained, exhausted. I need you to come back to the house immediately. Mr. Hawthorne, please. Something's happened. The children, they're asking for you and I don't know what to do. Fear gripped her heart. What's wrong? Are they hurt? Just come. Please. The drive to the mansion felt like an eternity. James followed in his own car, the tablet with its damning evidence secured in a briefcase. When they pulled up to the circular drive, Amelia could see Richard pacing in front of the house, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. He rushed to her car before she'd even turned off the engine. Thank God you came. Richard, what happened? It's Lily. She's been asking for you constantly since you left, crying, refusing to eat. This morning His voice broke. She told me Veronica hurt her. She showed me bruises, Amelia. Fresh ones. Where is Veronica now? I don't know. She left this morning after I confronted her about Lily's claims. She said she was going to her sister's house, that she couldn't stand being accused of such horrible things. James stepped forward. Mr. Hawthorne, we need to talk. All of us. James? What are you doing here? Showing you the truth, sir. They went inside and Amelia immediately heard Thomas crying upstairs. Her instincts kicked in and she ran toward the sound, finding the baby standing in his crib, tears streaming down his face, reaching for her desperately. Sweet boy, she murmured, lifting him into her arms. He clung to her with the desperation of a child who'd been abandoned by everyone he trusted. Lily appeared in the doorway, moving slowly and carefully. When she saw Amelia, she burst into tears and ran to her. I thought you weren't coming back, she sobbed. I thought Veronica sent you away forever. I'm here now, baby girl, Amelia said, though her heart was breaking. I'm here. Downstairs, James had set up his tablet in Richard's study and was methodically showing him the security footage. Amelia could hear Richard's voice, growing more horrified with each video. Jesus Christ. How long has this been going on? Based on the timestamps, since shortly after your marriage. But it escalated significantly after you hired Amelia. Because Veronica was jealous of the children's attachment to her, Richard said, understanding dawning. She took it out on them. Yes, sir. And when Amelia tried to protect them, Veronica framed her for theft to get rid of her. Amelia appeared in the doorway with both children clinging to her. Lily hadn't let go of her hand since she'd returned, and Thomas was still in her arms, his head resting on her shoulder. Richard looked at his children, really looked at them, and saw what he'd been blind to for months. The fear, the wariness, the way they flinched at sudden movements. The careful way Lily moved to protect her injured ribs. The desperate way Thomas clung to the one person who tried to protect them. I'm so sorry, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. Daddy? Lily's voice was small and uncertain. Are you mad at us? No, princess. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself for not keeping you safe. And Veronica? Richard's jaw tightened. Veronica will never hurt you again. I promise. James cleared his throat. Sir, we need to call the police. This evidence is more than enough to have her arrested for child abuse. Do it, Richard said without hesitation. And James? Thank you. Thank you for protecting my children when I failed to. As they waited for the police to arrive, Richard pulled Amelia aside. I owe you an apology that I can never adequately express, he said. You tried to save my children and I threw you out of the house. I believed her lies over your truth. The children are safe now. That's all that matters. No, it's not all that matters. You risked everything for them. You put their welfare above your own safety, your own livelihood. I don't know how to repay that kind of courage. You don't need to repay anything. Just love them. Protect them. Help them heal. Richard nodded, but she could see in his eyes that he felt the debt was far from settled. When the police arrived, they took statements from everyone and viewed the security footage James had compiled. The evidence was overwhelming, and within hours, a warrant had been issued for Veronica's arrest. We'll find her, Detective Morrison assured them. This level of evidence makes it a slam-dunk case. She'll be facing multiple charges of child abuse, and given the systematic nature of it, she's looking at serious prison time. As the sun set on what had been the longest day of their lives, Amelia sat with the children in the living room. Lily was curled up beside her, finally relaxed for the first time in months, while Thomas slept peacefully in her arms. Richard watched from the doorway, marveling at the transformation in his children now that they felt safe again. "Miss Amelia," Lily said sleepily, "are you going to stay with us now?" Amelia looked at Richard, uncertainty in her eyes. So much had happened, so much had changed. "If your daddy wants me to stay, then yes, I'll stay. Forever. For as long as you need me, baby girl." And for the first time since their mother died, both Lily and Thomas fell asleep without fear, surrounded by people who truly loved them and would never let anyone hurt them again. 2 weeks after Veronica's arrest, the Hawthorne mansion felt like a different house entirely. Gone was the oppressive atmosphere of fear that had hung over the family like a dark cloud. Instead, there was something Amelia had never expected to witness in this grand house: the sound of children's laughter. She stood in the kitchen, preparing lunch while watching Lily play in the garden through the window. The 6-year-old was chasing butterflies, her face lit up with pure joy as she ran freely across the lawn. It was the first time Amelia had seen her run since arriving at the house, and the sight brought tears to her eyes. "She's beautiful when she smiles," Richard said, appearing beside her at the window. He'd taken a leave of absence from work to focus on his children's recovery, and the change in him was remarkable. The distant, preoccupied businessman had been replaced by an attentive, present father. "She's been smiling more every day," Amelia replied. "Children are resilient. They heal faster than we think they will. Thanks to you." Richard had been trying to find ways to thank her for weeks now, but Amelia always deflected his gratitude. She'd done what anyone with a conscience would do, what any decent person should do when children are in danger. "Mr. Hawthorne, you really don't need to keep thanking me." "Yes, I do. And it's Richard, please. After everything we've been through together, I think we've moved past formalities." Thomas toddled into the kitchen, his chubby legs carrying him as fast as they could go. At 18 months he was finally developing the way he should, his personality emerging now that he wasn't living in constant fear. "Amelia," he called, reaching up for her with grabby hands. She lifted him easily, and he immediately snuggled into her neck, content and secure. The transformation in the baby was perhaps the most remarkable of all. He'd gone from a fearful, clingy child to a happy toddler who explored his world with curiosity and confidence. "The pediatric psychologist said his development is back on track," Richard said, watching his son with wonder. "Dr. Martinez said it's remarkable how quickly children can recover when they feel safe again." "And Lily?" "She's still having nightmares, but they're less frequent." She started talking about her mother again, sharing memories instead of keeping them locked inside. Richard paused, his voice thick with emotion. "She asked me yesterday if she could visit Margaret's grave. She wants to tell her mommy that she's safe now." Amelia's heart squeezed. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. I was hoping you'd come with us. Both children have asked for you to be there." Before Amelia could respond, her phone rang. She saw Detective Morrison's name and immediately answered. "Detective, do you have news?" "I do. Veronica Hawthorne has agreed to plead guilty to all charges. She'll be sentenced to 8 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 5 if she completes anger management and psychological counseling." Amelia closed her eyes in relief. "So the children won't have to testify?" "No. The video evidence was so compelling that her lawyers advised her to take the plea deal. She'll also be required to pay for the children's therapy and medical expenses." After hanging up, Amelia turned to find Richard staring at her intently. "It's over," she said. "Veronica took a plea deal. 8 years. Richard nodded grimly. "Good. Though no amount of time seems adequate for what she put them through. The important thing is that she can't hurt them anymore. They can heal without fear now." "Speaking of healing," Richard said, his expression becoming serious, "I have something I need to discuss with you." Amelia felt her stomach clench. Was he about to tell her that her services were no longer needed? That he'd found a more qualified nanny? "Of course. What is it?" "I've been thinking about what's best for the children moving forward. They've been through so much trauma, and their attachment to you has been the one constant source of comfort in their lives. They're wonderful children. They've been through hell, but they're survivors." "Yes, they are. Which is why I want to make you an offer." Richard took a deep breath. "I want you to become their legal guardian." Amelia stared at him in shock. I'm sorry, what? If something happens to me, I want you to be the one who raises them. Not some distant relative they barely know, not another nanny or caregiver. The woman who risked everything to save them. Richard, I don't know what to say. Say yes, please. I know it's a huge responsibility, but you love them and they love you. You've proven that their welfare comes before everything else, even your own safety and security. Tears spilled down Amelia's cheeks. Of course. Yes. I would be honored. There's more, Richard continued, his voice gaining confidence. I'm tripling your salary effective immediately. I'm also providing full health insurance for both you and your mother, and I'm setting up a college fund for you to pursue any additional education or certifications you might want. Richard, that's too much. It's not nearly enough. You saved my children's lives, Amelia. You gave them back their childhood, their sense of safety, their ability to trust again. There's no amount of money that could repay that debt. Thomas squirmed in her arms, wanting down to play, and as she set him on the floor, she watched him toddle happily toward his toy box. Such a simple thing, a child playing without fear, but it meant everything. There's one more thing, Richard said quietly. I've arranged for your mother to receive the best medical care available. The experimental treatment she needs? It's been approved and will be fully covered. Amelia's knees nearly gave out. Her mother's condition had been weighing heavily on her mind, the medical bills mounting even with her increased salary from Richard. How did you? I made some calls. Used my connections. Your mother will be transferred to the best treatment facility in the country next week. Richard's voice was gentle but firm. She's going to get well, Amelia. You don't have to carry that burden alone anymore. The tears came freely now, and Amelia didn't try to stop them. 4 months, she'd carried the weight of her mother's illness while fighting to protect 2 innocent children. The relief of knowing both battles were finally won was overwhelming. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for everything. No, Richard said softly. Thank you. For seeing what I was too blind to see. For having the courage to act when I failed. For loving my children when the person who was supposed to protect them was hurting them instead. Lily burst through the kitchen door, her cheeks flushed from playing outside. Miss Amelia. Daddy. Come see the butterfly garden. There are so many pretty ones. She grabbed both their hands, tugging them toward the door with the enthusiasm of a child who finally felt free to be a child again. As they walked into the garden together, watching Thomas chase soap bubbles that Lily blew for him, Amelia felt something she hadn't experienced in a very long time, hope. Not just for herself, but for this little family that had been through so much darkness and was finally stepping into the light. The healing process would take time. There would be therapy sessions and difficult conversations, nightmares and setbacks. But they would face it all together as a family with love and patience and the knowledge that they were finally truly safe. 6 months later, the Hawthorne house had transformed into something it had never been before. A real home. The sterile perfection that Veronica had demanded was gone, replaced by the comfortable chaos of a family actually living their lives. Amelia smiled as she walked through the living room, stepping over Thomas's scattered blocks and Lily's art supplies. The coffee table held a half-finished puzzle they were working on together, and crayon drawings covered the refrigerator door. It was beautiful in its imperfection. Miss Amelia, Lily called from the kitchen. Can you help me reach the flour? I want to make cookies for Daddy's birthday. Today was Richard's 43rd birthday, and both children had been planning surprises for weeks. Thomas, now 2 years old and full of mischief, had insisted on picking flowers from the garden, though most of them had lost their petals by the time he presented them to his father that morning. Of course, baby girl, Amelia replied, lifting Lily so she could reach the baking supplies. At 7 now, Lily had grown several inches and gained the healthy weight she'd lost during Veronica's abuse. Her laughter came easily now, and while she still had occasional nightmares, they were becoming rarer. Are you sure you want to make cookies from scratch? We could use the mix. No, Lily said firmly. Mommy always made them from scratch. She showed me the recipe before she went to heaven, remember? Amelia's heart swelled. Lily had started talking about her mother more frequently, sharing precious memories that had been locked away during the dark months with Veronica. It was a sign of healing that filled everyone with hope. Then from scratch it is. What kind did Mommy teach you to make? Chocolate chip with extra vanilla because Daddy loves vanilla. They worked side by side, Lily carefully measuring ingredients while Amelia guided her through the steps. Thomas helped by sitting in his high chair, eating more chocolate chips than went into the bowl. Thomas, you're going to spoil your dinner, Amelia laughed, gently taking the handful of chips he was about to shove in his mouth. More, he demanded, his vocabulary expanding daily now that he felt secure enough to explore and express himself. Richard appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in his suit from work but with his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. The sight of his children covered in flour and chocolate, giggling over their baking project, made him pause and smile. "What's all this?" he asked, though he could clearly see what was happening. "We're making your birthday cookies," Lily announced proudly. "It's a surprise." "Well, I'm very surprised," Richard said seriously. "And honored. May I help?" "You have to wash your hands first," Lily instructed. "And put on an apron so you don't get flour on your work clothes." As Richard donned one of the frilly aprons that had belonged to Margaret, Amelia caught his eye and felt her heart skip. Over the past 6 months, their relationship had evolved from professional to something deeper and more complex. He was no longer just her employer, and she was far more than just his children's nanny. The attraction between them had grown slowly, built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and their combined dedication to Lily and Thomas's well-being. But both had been careful not to act on those feelings, focusing entirely on the children's recovery. "How was your day?" Amelia asked as Richard joined them at the counter. "Long board meeting about the expansion into Southeast Asia," he replied, but his attention was focused on helping Thomas drop chocolate chips into the bowl without eating them all. "But coming home to this makes it all worthwhile." The simple domesticity of the moment struck them both. Richard, once consumed by business deals and profit margins, now found his greatest happiness in flour-covered children and homemade cookies. Amelia, who had spent years caring for other people's families, had found something she'd never expected, a family of her own. "Daddy," Lily said thoughtfully, "are you happy now?" The question was simple, but it carried the weight of everything they'd all been through together. "Yes, Princess. I'm very happy. Are you happy?" Lily considered this seriously, then nodded. "Yes. I love living with you and Miss Amelia and Tommy. It feels like we're a real family now." "We are a real family," Richard said firmly. "The four of us were a family in every way that matters." Thomas chose that moment to knock over his cup of milk, creating a small flood across the counter. Instead of the panic and fear that would have followed such an accident months ago, there was only laughter as they all rushed to clean it up. "I'll get the towels," Lily volunteered, running to the laundry room. "I help," Thomas declared, trying to wipe the spill with his tiny hands. As Amelia and Richard worked together to clean up the mess, their hands brushed and the electric moment stretched between them. Richard caught her hand gently and for a moment they stood frozen, looking into each other's eyes. "Amelia," he began softly, "there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" "I love you." The words hung in the air between them, simple and honest and terrifying in their implications. "Richard, I know the timing might not be perfect and I know the situation is complicated with the children and everything we've been through. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just gratitude or appreciation." Amelia's heart raced. She'd felt the same way for months but had convinced herself it was impossible, that the gulf between their social positions and the complexity of their situation made any romantic relationship unthinkable. "I love you too," she whispered, the admission feeling both dangerous and liberating. Before Richard could respond, Lily returned with an armload of towels, and they quickly separated, both trying to appear casual while their hearts hammered with the weight of what they'd just confessed. But Lily, with the perception that children often have about adult emotions, looked between them with knowing eyes. "Are you going to get married?" she asked matter-of-factly. "Lily," Amelia exclaimed, her face burning with embarrassment. "What? I think you should. Then Miss Amelia would be our real mommy, and we'd be a family forever and ever." Richard knelt down to Lily's level. "Would you like that, Princess? If Miss Amelia and I got married?" "Yes," Lily said without hesitation. "And Tommy would like it too, wouldn't you, Tommy?" Thomas, who understood more than he could articulate, clapped his hands and shouted, "Amelia, Daddy," which everyone took as enthusiastic approval. "Well then," Richard said, standing and turning to Amelia with a smile that was both nervous and determined, "I guess I have a question to ask you." To Amelia's shock, he dropped to one knee right there in the flour-covered kitchen, with chocolate chip cookie dough on his hands and milk spilled on the counter. "Amelia Johnson, you've saved my children, healed my family, and stolen my heart completely. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and the mother my children need?" Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she looked at this man who had become everything to her, kneeling in the chaos of their beautiful, imperfect life together. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Lily squealed with delight and threw her arms around both of them, while Thomas banged his spoon on his high chair in celebration. And in that moment, surrounded by flower and laughter and the promise of forever, Amelia knew that all the pain and fear and uncertainty had led to exactly where she was supposed to be. Home. Finally, truly home. 1 year later, the garden at the Hawthorne estate was transformed into something from a fairy tale. White roses and baby's breath created elegant arrangements along the aisle, and string lights twinkled overhead despite the afternoon sunshine. It was a small ceremony, intimate and perfect, with only the people who mattered most in attendance. Amelia stood in the bridal suite, looking at herself in the mirror and hardly recognizing the woman staring back. The simple but elegant white dress flowed perfectly, and her mother, healthy and radiant after her successful treatment, was putting the finishing touches on her hair. "You look beautiful, baby," her mother said, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of the woman you've become, the family you've built." "I can hardly believe it's real," Amelia admitted. "Sometimes I think I'll wake up and find out this has all been a dream." "It's real and it's what you deserve. Richard is a good man, and those children love you like you gave birth to them yourself." A soft knock on the door interrupted them, and Dr. Patricia Coleman peeked in. She'd become not just the family's pediatrician but a close friend over the past year. "The bride is glowing," Patricia said with a warm smile. "Are you ready for this?" "More than ready," Amelia replied. "I've been ready since the day I decided to protect those children." Downstairs, Richard stood at the altar with his best man, James Rodriguez, who had become not just head of security but a trusted friend and confidant. The rows of white chairs held the small group of people who had supported their journey: Mrs. Henderson, Dr. Martinez the child psychologist, a few close colleagues from Richard's company, and some friends from Amelia's past. But the most important guests were sitting in the front row, dressed in their finest clothes and practically vibrating with excitement. Lily, now 8 and serving as the flower girl, wore a pale pink dress and held a basket of rose petals. Thomas, at 2.5, was the ring bearer, though James had the backup rings in case the toddler decided to throw them or eat them. "Daddy, is Miss Amelia coming soon?" Lily whispered loudly, her excitement barely contained. "Very soon, Princess," Richard replied, his own nerves showing. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but the thought of marrying the woman who had saved his family had him more nervous than he'd ever been. The music began, and Thomas walked down the aisle with his tiny pillow, actually managing to make it to the altar without dropping the rings or getting distracted. The guests chuckled at his serious concentration, and when he reached Richard, he held up the pillow proudly. "Good job, big boy," Richard whispered, and Thomas beamed. Lily followed, sprinkling rose petals with theatrical flair, making sure every guest got a good look at her basket and her dress. When she reached the altar, she stood on her tiptoes and whispered to Richard, "She's going to be so pretty, Daddy." Then the bridal march began, and Amelia appeared at the back of the aisle with her mother. Richard's breath caught in his throat. She was radiant, glowing with happiness and love, and when their eyes met, everything else faded away. As they walked toward each other, both thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. The fear, the pain, the courage it had taken to fight for what was right. The slow building of trust and love, the healing of wounded hearts, the creation of something beautiful from something broken. When Amelia reached the altar, Richard took her hands and she could see tears in his eyes. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "So are our children," she replied, looking at Lily and Thomas, who were watching with rapt attention. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising not just to love each other but to continue protecting and nurturing the family they had built together. "I promise to love your children as my own," Richard said, "because you taught me that family isn't just about blood, it's about choice and commitment and showing up every day. I promise to build a home with you where our children never doubt they are safe and loved," Amelia replied, "where their laughter fills every room and their dreams are supported no matter how big or small." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss they shared was tender and full of promise. But the real magic happened next, when they turned to include Lily and Thomas in their first embrace as a married family. "We did it," Lily whispered as they all hugged together. "We're really a family now." "We were always a family," Amelia said, lifting Thomas so he could join the group hug properly. "Now it's just official." The reception was held in the same garden, with dancing and cake and the kind of joy that comes from surviving darkness and choosing light. Amelia's mother danced with Richard, thanking him for saving her daughter's life by giving her a family to love. James gave a toast about the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. But the most touching moment came when Lily approached the microphone, having practiced a speech for weeks. "I want to say thank you to Mommy Amelia," she began, using the name she'd started calling her after the engagement. "She saved me and Tommy when we were scared and hurt. She made Daddy see the truth and made our house happy again. And now she's going to be our real mommy forever." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, the new family of 4 sat together on the porch swing that Richard had installed specifically for moments like this. Thomas was asleep in Amelia's arms, exhausted from all the excitement, while Lily leaned against Richard's side. "Are you happy, Mrs. Hawthorne?" Richard asked, testing out his wife's new name. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Amelia replied. "And you, Mr. Hawthorne?" "Complete," he said simply. "For the first time in years, I feel complete." Lily yawned sleepily. "Will you tell us the story again? About how Mommy Amelia saved us?" "Tomorrow, Princess," Richard said, kissing the top of her head. "Tonight, let's just be grateful for our happy ending." As they sat together in the gathering twilight, watching fireflies dance in the garden where children's laughter now echoed daily, they all understood that this wasn't really an ending at all. It was a beginning. The beginning of a life built on love, trust, courage, and the unshakable knowledge that they would always protect each other. Veronica was serving her prison sentence, getting the help she needed while paying for the harm she'd caused. The children continued their therapy and grew stronger every day. Amelia's mother lived nearby in a beautiful cottage Richard had bought for her, healthy and happy and surrounded by grandchildren who adored her. And in the mansion that had once been a place of fear and silence, there was now the constant sound of family life. Children playing, parents laughing, a home filled with the kind of love that heals all wounds and makes anything possible. They had faced the darkness together and emerged into the light, stronger and more united than ever. And every day moving forward would be a reminder that love, when it's real and true and brave, can overcome anything.